Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston, born and raised, H-Town Rebel, Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans, from a diehard Houston sports fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster that can barely pronounce his own name. I'm an actor, improviser, writer, creative multi-hyphenate, and of course, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. I lived in the Heights when it was still a Latino neighborhood. That's right, y'all. Way back in the day. I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer here in Los Angeles. And now, well, you can tell now I'm podcasting. That's what happens once you hit 10 years out here. You start just absent-mindedly and subconsciously calling it the 10 instead of I-10. And you start podcasting. Welcome to said podcast. Space Cadet Sports started as a passion project because most media is infuriating as a diehard long-term fan of your Houston Astros. Here we aren't doom and gloom casual Astros fans, or worse, national media haters or avoiders. We love our Houston teams and root them on, but we also want to try to discuss the ins and outs of our teams without too much homerism. The key word here is try. At this point, I'd like to welcome returning listeners and welcome new listeners to what my brother calls the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. Hey, brother. Shout out to my brothers. Shout out to Arrested Development fans. Please check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretation of my pronunciation there. We are recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, The Roz. To my Fraser, Carla, the dog, is here with me today. Long-time listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's got the hot takes on this podcast. Not me. I've got the cool takes. I'm the crema to her salsa. On this episode, we are back, baby! We're back. A dinosaur story. We're going to be talking about the Rockets. Holy shnikes. Folks, your Houston Rockets traded for Kevin Durant. We'll get into that today. We're also going to kind of touch base with your Houston Astros. I know I haven't been on air. I haven't done a podcast in quite some time. I took some time off. Haven't done a podcast in a minute. Haven't done a game series recap or meme. Anything on the, the blog has kind of been silent for a minute. So before we completely get into the podcast, usually we wish a good day mates to all our listeners out there. So, of course, good day mates to all the listeners. But before we really get into the podcast, I would like to address why we've kind of been quiet recently. Why there hasn't been, a lot of Houston sports takes from your boy, Space Cadet Paul out here. So just for a brief minute, and I do want to give you a trigger warning. I will talk. I live in Los Angeles. So we will be talking about current events for the next couple of minutes. Trigger warning to people out there that, I know this is a sports podcast, but I think it's really important. Living in Los Angeles has been tough the last couple of weeks. I'm recording this June 23rd in 2025. It's been a tough month here in Los Angeles. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough couple of years out in Los Angeles, to be frank. But frankly, once Los Angeles was infiltrated with huge influx of ICE agents, things got a little dicey. I don't want to give away too much here, but I do live in a pretty primarily Hispanic, Latinx, Latino, whatever term you're more comfortable with. I accept all types here. I live in a primary Latino neighborhood in Los Angeles. Frankly, I wrote down a lot of thoughts about this, and I really tried to find the right words, and there are no right words. So I just came here to speak from the heart, and truthfully, and trying to choose my words carefully. I don't want to upset anybody, but truthfully, what's happened is masked men with no badges, with nothing to prove that they are official, with no warrants signed by a judge, masked men showed up to Los Angeles and started taking away our neighbors, our coworkers, our acquaintances, our loved ones, family members. Right now, the news is sensationalizing and politicizing a lot of things, but at the end of the day, that was the thing that started all of the drama you see in the news right now, and truthfully, it was terrifying. It's scary. To know people that have lost people. It's scary to feel unmarked cars with masked men are nearby looking to pick people up. And a lot of the people that have been picking up by ICE have no criminal record. And some of them are United States citizens. Some of them have identification that can prove that they're citizens. There have been citizens of the United States. There have been immigrants with no criminal charges, true criminal charges against them, that have been deported and sent to prison. There's some of them that have been brought back now. We live in very scary times, and in my neighborhoods, people started going missing and things got really tense. So, of course, the natural reaction was for people in Los Angeles to try to protect their neighbors and their loved ones as best they can. And things just got worse from there. The president of the United States has very much turned this into a political event, political theater, and has frankly been lying to people about the events that have been happening in Los Angeles, and that's been very frightening. And I don't know how to say this, and frankly, I shouldn't live in a time where I am worried about using free speech or talking about this kind of a thing, but it has been very terrifying. So baseball in sports and my podcast definitely took a backseat to all of the real things that were happening in Los Angeles. It definitely has been a frightening time. And it's you really don't know what is going to happen next at times here in Los Angeles. So I've been here trying to, taking care of my community. I've been here trying to take care of my loved ones, trying to check in with my friends, trying to do the right thing, trying to make sure that when we look back, when potentially my future children look back, when future generations look back, they're going to look back at this time, at this day and age, and they're going to be horrified by the things that were happening. And I just wanted to point back and say, at this time and be like, I did my best in this time. And, I think my best could have been me also doing the podcast at the same time. There are plenty of people that were able to do things like this, but for me, I had to focus on other things. I had to focus on myself too. It's been a roller coaster dealing with this here in Los Angeles. I frankly, it's even been a roller coaster trying to figure out how I'm going to talk about this on the podcast. But folks, at the end of the day, I'm happy to be safe. I'm blessed with a lot of privilege as well. But at the same time, it's like I don't feel comfortable walking outside without my passport in my pocket at the same time as I am very visibly Latino. So it's like I know my privilege. I'm very happy to know that, the way I'm affected there's so many other people that are much more affected by this, and I'm trying to be there to protect them and be strong for them and help them out. But at the end of the day, it's been some weird times here in Los Angeles, and I think when we look back, we'll see these as some really tense and dark days. I know there's a lot of politics out there right now, but I think at the end of the day, we know that we should be protecting people and speaking, protecting our neighbors and speaking up for what's right. I was raised in a very religious household. I was raised to believe that I had to get a good education and study the principles in which the United States of America was founded upon. And the principles the United States was founded upon the actions of this administration is not in line with the principles this country was based upon, and it definitely isn't based in any kind of religious rules. We should be protecting each other, and I just, at the end of the day, it's like this isn't political. This is just about humanity. Inhumane things are happening right now, and we should be protecting each other. So at the end of the day, long rant, but that's why we haven't been doing a podcast recently. And in some way, I know some people are turning this off and will never listen again. And that's fine. To each their own. Never listen again. That's fine with me. But, at the end of the day, here, we want to stand for what's right. We want to stand on the side of people and helping people no matter what, like not making excuses for it and helping people and showing love and compassion. And that's what we'll do, and that's what we'll strive to do. And with that being said, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to actually talk about sports. We'll be right back, folks.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston, born and raised, H-Town Rebel, Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back, folks. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I definitely, I wanted to go from the heart. That was a little long and rambly, but that is who I am. I wanted it to be sincere. I wanted to be vulnerable and from the heart. But apologies for a bit of ramble there. I know my thoughts would have been more concise if I wrote them down, but I thought sincerity was more important than a very well-prepared statement. I didn't want to seem like I was preaching. I didn't want to write a sermon. I just wanted to speak from the heart. But now that I'm speaking from the heart, let's talk about something that made my heart jump yesterday, because Kevin Durant is officially a Houston Rocket. And I'm very excited about it. I know I said in the past, long-time listeners of the podcast might know that I said in the past that, we might not want to go for an aging veteran. We might want to go for somebody younger. And I think I've evolved. That's what I'll say. I didn't change my mind. I evolved from that take. That there's a difference. I've become more educated. No, but I do think I warmed up to the idea of Kevin Durant over time. And I think my first inclination of being hesitant to Kevin Durant is obviously going to be his age. He's an older player. He could run into some injury issues. He's not the Kevin Durant that we know from the past. And that's not saying he can't ball. The guy's still a bucket. He's still a baller. I'm not trying to say Kevin Durant isn't him. But whenever you trade for an aging player, you do know that sometimes you're going to get limited returns as the player gets older. So I think primarily my concern was that. But Kevin Durant has been aging pretty well in the league, at least in my eyes. These things like this are things that will always come back and haunt me, saying something like that. But his game has aged fairly well. He's still able to score. I think if he can maintain his health throughout a season, he's going to be great, and we're only going to have Durant for a couple of seasons. So let's look at the trade. I think my whole concern about Kevin Durant was that if we're building the team completely around Durant and he's going to be gone in a couple seasons, that is going to be difficult. However, truthfully, after watching Alper and Şengün in that playoff series, I've more and more started to think, Şengün is really a big piece. He might not be the cornerstone piece exactly, but he is an amazing piece for this franchise, and I think if we have Kevin Durant in here to be that main piece for a couple of seasons, Şengün could either kind of figure out if he can get to that gear or will be strong enough to still attract another big star to the Houston Rockets. But let's look at who the Rockets had to give up for Kevin Durant. While we are very excited about Kevin Durant, we're very excited about what the future could hold for the Houston Rockets. Exactly what did the Rockets have to give up? So obviously, the biggest pieces here are going to be Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks. The Rockets also sent out the number 10 pick in this year's draft. That's this upcoming draft. Number 1 pick is gone, and 5 second-round picks in the future. That's from Shams. Shout out Shams, everybody's favorite breaking news. I don't even know what you would call it, like influencer at this point. I mean, he doesn't influence the news, but he does. He's always able to be there to break it. I think the picks. No one's too worried about these picks, right? I think when you get a name like Kevin Durant and you're seeing, 5 second-round picks and a number 1 round pick go out the door, it doesn't seem you're not too worried about the potential of what those picks could be. You're like, fine, yeah, go ahead, take potential. We'll take Kevin Durant. So for me, at least for me, I haven't been too concerned about the picks. This is just something that broke yesterday, so I haven't completely emerged myself. Oh my goodness, it's how you know that it's been a while since I've recorded and I'm going through it. Just myself. It's just myself here. I promise I'm doing okay. It's been a tough couple of weeks, but I'm doing okay, folks. Just myself. I think I don't even remember my point. I'm over here trying to convince you that I'm doing okay. I don't remember what I was talking about anymore. My goodness, I swear I'm doing okay. There are stressful times happening right now, but my brain is just a little scatterbrained right now. Truthfully, we're talking about the picks here. We're not worried about the picks. But let's look at Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green. Truthfully, there's a big part, the way I put it for my friends in my Houston friend group text that, of course, went off I'm sure all of our text groups went off yesterday. I think, my Houston group text, I kind of told them, of course, in my heart, I kind of wish that Jalen Green could have a redemption story with the Rockets. But my brain was much more critical. I think Jalen Green has been, I've mentioned it in the past, we've been very pro Jalen Green on this podcast. Even after the playoff meltdown of Jalen Green, we're fairly, I would say, we were critical of Jalen Green, of course, but we still, of course, were optimistic that maybe Jalen Green could turn it around still. Maybe he isn't exactly, that ceiling that we've had for Jalen Green, and his projections have kind of been slowly going down this past season. The ceiling for Jalen Green, I feel like we all collectively raised that ceiling back up, and then after the playoffs lowered the ceiling back down. So, Jalen Green is definitely he's been a pretty divisive player his whole career. I think that, for me, I'm projecting that he definitely has a higher ceiling, than I think a lot of other Rockets fans think. But, that is also potential. He would have to reach that potential. All I'm saying that it is there. So, of course, in my heart, I am the type of guy, and we say it on the podcast, and these are the type of fans I try to attract on this podcast. I'm the type of guy that if you're wearing Houston on your chest, I will be rooting for you. You have to do something completely reprehensible or immoral for me not to root for you if you have Houston on your chest. And so for me, I was still rooting for Jalen Green, and I'll still be rooting for Jalen Green even though he's in Phoenix now, as long as he's not playing the Rockets, especially if he's not playing them in any kind of playoff series, which, right now we're not too worried about. But still, I will still be rooting on Jalen Green. I'm not the type of guy that's like, well, good riddance. I do think that the team, for the most part, even though I was a huge fan of Jalen Green and I was a pretty big fan of Dillon Brooks, especially when you look at how much hate these players can get, I feel like I was definitely, I was Bernie Sanders-ing it. I was in the top 1% of fandom for these guys here. I was standing Green and Brooks last season. So I do think I will miss these players, of course, but I think in this genius kind of way, Rafael Stone really kind of offloaded two of the playoff liabilities towards the end of that Warriors series. I do think Dillon Brooks is a great defensive player. I do think he was. I don't even think I have proof that he was the best 3-point shooter on the Rockets last season, even if he kind of faltered towards the last couple of games there. Dillon Brooks was great for the Rockets, but it did look in the playoff series as time went on that he kind of wasn't exactly as quick as he used to be. His defense, he is getting older. Father time comes for us all. He came for me. That's why I'm podcasting. Father time. That's as if I was a good enough baller to actually make money off of it. I wasn't a good enough basketball player to get picked in pickup games. I'm making jokes here. Obviously, Dillon Brooks is an amazing player. I think he's having a great career. I think still proving a lot of haters wrong. I like a player like that. I like to root for a player like that. But I do think that going forward, Dillon Brooks might be riding a bit of that. Might be writing the allegations that or having to fight off the allegations that he is a fading defensive player. I think that getting rid of Green and Brooks, they still have enough potential, enough respect in this league to be traded for somebody like Kevin Durant. But we still have Amin Thompson, we still have Alperen Şengün, and I thought that if we were going to trade for somebody big, like a Giannis, like a Kevin Durant, I really thought that we would have to give up a player like Şengün or Amin Thompson, that it would pretty much be demanded that we needed to give up one of them with Green or with Brooks. I didn't think anybody would be cool with both Green and Brooks. And I also thought maybe there'd be a potential that Fred VanVleet would also have to go in the deal just for money, or just because Fred, obviously showed some flashes in the playoffs too. He had some moments where he was struggling, but, Fred obviously had a good season. He had a good playoff series. Fred VanVleet is a veteran and respected, so I thought maybe we'd have to lose Fred. But when you look at what we added for what we gave up, my goodness, I feel like, there can be some people that are going to be in the future. We're going to look at what some of these picks might turn into, and it might look a little lopsided. 100%. Yeah, that could definitely happen. But right now, as we're sitting today, I feel like the Rockets won this trade. I feel like, sure, that those picks could turn into something, but for what you're giving up and for what you get to retain, this is incredible, because it's not just who the Rockets traded, it's who the Rockets retained in this trade. And on top of speaking about who the Rockets retained and getting excited about what the starting five could be, we also are hearing rumors that they could still be going for Giannis. I don't know if that's true. I'm not saying that's true. Look, folks, this is a comedy show. I always say this is a sports show, but it's also a comedy show. I want to remind you at this point that I am a comedian. Okay, I'm not a sports journalist. So while I'm saying that there's a rumor out there, I am saying that it is a rumor. Remember, folks, when you hear that something is a rumor, that doesn't mean it is news. The news is that it is a rumor, not that it is substantiated. So we don't know if they're actually going for Giannis, but the fact of the matter is that they still feel like there's people out there feeling like they could still make a Giannis move is big. I was gonna also talk about some Astros today. I mentioned that I would, but I think I'm gonna wrap up before I get into that today. Honestly, it's been a lot, and I'm happy to get back into the routine of podcasting, but I am exhausted, folks. There's been a lot of things that we're doing here. This is a passion project of mine. I still have a job. I still write comedy on top of producing this podcast. This podcast does not pay the bills yet, folks. But we will come back to talk some more Astros. Hopefully I'll be able to do that tomorrow or the next day. It definitely will happen this week. I'll have an Astros podcast out by Thursday, I promise. But as we're wrapping up, with Jalen Green gone, we're looking at some guards here. We're looking at who is going to help Fred VanVleet. Is this... I'll wrap up the podcast with this thought. How excited are you guys for Reed Sheppard and Cam Whitmore next season? Jalen Green being gone does sting. We will miss Green here at the podcast, but does this open the door for Cam Whitmore or Reed Sheppard to really go off next season? Let me know what y'all think, because I think that I think it definitely opens the door. But do you think I guess the question should be, who will take advantage of that door opening more at this juncture? Cam Whitmore or Reed Sheppard? Let me know what y'all think, folks. And with that being said, that's gonna do it for this episode today, folks. You can tell it's been a while since I've done the podcast. I'm trying to remember my outro, and I'm having to look up the script. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast, folks. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it, smash it. Hit all of those buttons for me. We are a small podcast, and we only go as far as our listenership takes us. We are supported by listeners like you, so please share with a Houston fan or Australian in your life. Give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. It really goes a long way to helping the podcast. Folks, check out the Substack. Once again, that's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can be a subscriber for free and get every podcast, every meme dump, and almost every article delivered to your email box for free, or get the app and be a subscriber that way, where there's no emails. You just get the notifications like me. You can reach out and let me know your takes there on the Substack, or you can reach out on social media. That's at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram, or at spacecadetsports.bsky.social on Blue Sky, where we're a little bit more active. Or you could also call in, believe it or not. You could leave me a voicemail with your take. Let me know if you believe in Cam or Reed Moore taking advantage of that position. You could do that at SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/SpaceCadetSports. If it isn't too profane or crazy, it might even make the podcast. If you're like me, you've gotten this far, and you haven't been thrown off by my politics, by my weirdness, or my Houston sports takes, you can find more of me being weird on the internet, making jokes, memes, art, podcasts, and so much more at Paul Salazar Jr., paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net. And you can find my other Substack, all my social media, and all my other nonsense if you're nasty. You can even check on my merch. That's right, we have podcast merch on the website. We're hustling out here, folks. Thanks so much for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston.